Sengo. I hope I pronounced I hope I pronounced that correctly, from Cape Town in South Africa. Thank you so much for joining us. It's 3 p.m. here in Nigeria. Angela, what time is it in South Africa? I hope you leave that in the comment section. It's 3:03. It's 4 p.m. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, here.
Just an hour difference.
Yeah. So we are an hour ahead of you guys.
Yeah, yes, an hour difference. That's good to know. Okay, I'm waiting for others to, give us wherever it is that they're joining us from before we continue. While we're doing that also, I'd like for us to fill the open survey, the poll. Okay, I think we've filled that already. All right, thank you to Tendani Tsidu from Johannesburg, South Africa. Thank you so much for joining us. I don't know how many of us were around last week. Maybe we could just, quickly have a recap of what we did last week. Okay, thank you, Mamadou. I'm not going to murder that name, so I'll just keep it simple. Thank you. He's joining us from Abidjan, but in Cairo for 1 week. Thank you so much for joining us. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I'm not sure I got correct pronunciation. Thank you, Selena, for joining us from Accra in Ghana. Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, Fikayo Yuale is joining us from Nigeria. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so I think you have a good number while the others join in. Musa Ismail is joining us from Kano in Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us. While we wait for that, can anyone just drop some of the things that we learned last week? You can type it in the comment section. In the chat session, I'm going to read it out. Let's just quickly have a recap of why science communication. It might be what you picked from it or what you've done differently, what you've gained differently since last week. So you can just drop that for us. Thank you, Justina Mayunga from Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. Thank you so much for joining us. Aruna Ahmed Sani, thank you for joining us from Katsina in Nigeria. Big thank you to you. So I'll wait for us to drop the things that we learned from last week. One of the things that stood out for me last week is collaboration. Okay, Aruna, you say you can't hear the event. Oh, I hope my voice is clear enough for others to hear. I hope others can hear me. I don't believe they can hear me. All right, thank you. I can see some persons nodding. That means they can hear me. Maybe just adjust your microphone or something. All right, thank you. Selena said you learned about the skills needed for science communication, which is critical thinking, knowledge translation, and that's very profound. All right, thank you, Temilua, for responding. Critical thinking, knowledge translation. Yes, and I think that's one of the things that also stood out for me last week too. Critical thinking is needed. I remember someone asking about how to translate some of the science jargon. And okay, yeah. All right, thank you. Aruna, please connect your audio. Yes, I think it might just be the audio from your device. Yeah, so we're talking, thank you, Selena, for starting us off from that note. Skills needed for science communication, critical thinking, and knowledge translation. And yeah, I was saying, someone asked the question last week about how to translate the jargons in science communication. At that point in time, I was like, yes, this is actually one of the issues that people have. But our guests last week, they did justice to that. And yes, critical thinking is important, knowledge translation is important, and also we need to understand that you can't do everything. That's why collaboration is key. All right, thank you very much. While we prepare for the main gist of today's story, if you're just joining us, in case you're just joining us, I think we have more participants now. You can also do well to send in where you're joining us from, send us your location, and we'll be glad to read it out. We'll be glad to meet you. Thank you very much. And while we're still doing that, thank you, Salisu. I think it was Salisu that mentioned Selinam. Selinam, sorry. I need someone else to, drop one of the things that they learned. Yeah, thank you, Sabella, for joining us. Yeah, thank you, Sabella, for joining us. She mentioned, I learned that it is important that scientists also learn how to translate their findings to be very easy to understand. And yes, I think another thing that stood out for me last week is the fact that science communication starts from the ideation stage. I'm not sure it was put that way, but that was the way I interpreted it. It starts from the ideation stage. Once you have made up your mind on your research from the ideation stage. Once you started off from the ideation stage, that's where science communication starts from. All right, thank you, Nadege, for joining us from Cameroon. Thank you. And also Katlego. Please, I'm so sorry for the way of pronouncing your name in case I'm not pronouncing it very well. Thank you so much, Katlego Peji, for joining us from Valbank. Okay, I'm just going to stop right there. I'm so sorry. Thank you so much, Esther, for joining us. Thank you, Manuel Boake, for joining us from Ghana. Thank you. Thank you very much. Please, let's drop the things that we learned last week. I think I can see some familiar names from last week. What were the things that we learned last week? Thank you, Isabella, for then I would also love to ask, what do you hope to get from science communication? Let's just rub minds. What are the things that you hope to get from science communication? Do you just want to come just to learn? Do you just want to just join in? Or what do you really hope to get from science communication? I think this will help us and to go a long way in encouraging another person also. Thank you so much, Full Fellow, for joining us from South Africa, from Limpopo in South Africa. Thank you so much for joining us. And of course, I learned earlier that South Africa is like an hour ahead of us. It's 4 o'clock right there, and it's 3 o'clock here in Nigeria. So yeah, I was asking, what exactly do you hope to get from science communication? Thank you, Mark Clemenson, for joining us from South Africa. Also, thank you, Tendani. Said my take from last week was that we need to encourage and support scientists to communicate their work instead of creating barriers for them by saying scientists can communicate or that scientists are bad communicators. Yes, thank you. I think I remember this point from last week. I think one of our guests too was from what we call the humanities, and jumped into, I think he had to, she had dual certification. She had certification from what you call humanities and also from sciences, and found a way to bridge the gap via science communication. Also, yeah, in case you're just joining us, what benefit do you want to derive from science communication? Maybe I didn't put that correctly. From what are the benefits do you hope to derive from science communication? I know that we have different persons here. We have journalists here, we have students here, we have postgraduate students here, we have researchers. So what benefits do you want to derive from science communication? So yeah, back to what Tendani said. The scientists are not bad communicators. Scientists are not bad communicators. The fact that we spend our time in the laboratory does not mean that scientists are bad communicators. So thank you, Tendani. That's a very good point from last week. Thank you for refreshing our mind. Also, Alimat Atonda said, okay, Alimat Atonda said, I hope to learn how to tell science stories. Okay, yes, you're in the right place because today we'll be talking about how to find science stories. And subsequent weeks, we'll be talking about how to write it. So yeah, thank you, Alimat Atonda. I said, I hope to learn how to tell science stories, talk about some of the problems in our community and what science is doing to solve them and how far they've gone and what are some of the limitations, also to create awareness in a larger population. That's very good. That's a very profound one. Thank you, Alimat. That's a very profound one. Also, Muideen said that my main aim is to know the basics of how to explain the technical science to non-scientists, and that's very profound. You know, we're talking about science jargon earlier, and this is just a good one. Thank you very much. Justina said, my take from last week is that science has a vital role to play if we truly want to solve society issues. And yes, I think I have to take this point to mention one of the person asked a question about, you know, science, about our science findings being dumped, different science findings being dumped in our various institutions of learning. And the main Jews of our stories, the main Jews of our findings are not really given to the public. So yes, thank you very much. Science is very, very important if we want to solve major societal issues. So, and for society to understand it, it has to be communicated in a manner and way that they will understand. All right, thank you very much, Justina. Selena said, I hope to learn how to create programs that promote health literacy and curb medical misinformation in our society. All right, thank you very much. Also, Emma Clemson said, it will help us to learn how to explain why science is relevant to people so that it can help them rather than not creating change because they don't understand. So if I get the point clearly, it's basically to help the society understand science so that we're not just talking in abstract terms, we're talking in a language that they understand, in, you know, everyday terms that they understand. Also, Tara Christina said, I hope to learn how to communicate to communities, people who don't understand most scientific terms. That's very, very good. That's a very good one. And also, Emma Clemson said, I hope to learn some of the methods to do this. Yes, like I rightly announced, that today we'll be talking about how to find science stories. And also subsequently, we'll be talking about how to write science stories. And this is just a good place to be in. This is a very good place to be in. Thank you very much. I think we have, the last time I checked, we have some persons joining us newly. Thank you so much for joining us once again. We'll be going in shortly into today's topic, which is how to find science stories. How to find science stories. Yeah, you can still keep your comments coming in. What are the benefits you hope to derive from science communication? Yosina said, I hope to learn how to communicate and deliver science information in a simple way that everyone can understand. I mean, we're in the right place. We're all in the same WhatsApp group, like we would say, yeah. We're all in the same WhatsApp group. We want to learn how to communicate and deliver science information in a way that everyone would understand. Thank you very, Justina, for saying that's very profound. That's very, very profound. So, in a little while from now, I'll be reading the profile of our guest speaker for today. Is it guest speaker? Some others have met him. You're just joining us newly. Well, it might be a stranger to you. But if you were here last week, I'm sure you met him. He's also the creative director. Okay, I won't let the cat out of the bag just yet. I won't let the cat out of the bag just yet. I'll read that to us. So, as you're joining us, just introduce yourself in the comment section, in the chat segment. And also, you can also keep coming on what are the things that you to benefit from science communication. All right, it's 3:18 here. And we want to waste your time, we want to take your time than it's necessary. So let me just introduce our guests. Today, we have the creative director at Alpha Innovation Studio. It goes by the name Fikayo Oyiwale. He holds a Bachelor of Agriculture and a Master of Science degrees in Animal Science from the Obafemi Awolowo University, Ife, Nigeria. I pivoted into science communication in a bid to bridge the gap between science and society in Africa. He's also keen on the use of different media, text, pictures, infographics, video arts, etc., to connect science with the society. He's the creative director of Alpha Innovation Studio. This is a company founded to provide premium science communication and public engagement services to African scientists and institutions. He recently co-produced a documentary on improving health in Nigeria for the Lancet. That's the world-leading independent general medical journal. He is a scientific communication officer at the African Center of Excellence for Genomics of Infectious Diseases at Redeemers University, Ede, Nigeria. He is also a certified project management professional and a member of National Association of Science Writer, Public Communication of Science and Technology, among others. It is my delight to welcome Mr. Fikayo Oyiwale as he takes us through the drills on how to find science stories. I hope that at the end of this session, we are going to have a very swell time. We're going to have an interactive session. And of course, we're going to have very good value for our time. Thank you very much. I'll step aside and let him take the stage. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Fikayo Oyiwale.
Right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I am delighted to join you, and thank you so much for coming for this second session of our workshop. I would be sharing my screen shortly. Just give me a few seconds, please. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Right.
Okay, I can see it rather.
Okay, thank you. I believe others should be able to see it too. So I'll be presenting on this topic that we say is how to find science stories. And first, okay, so this is my outline. We're going to talk about why should we talk about story? Why should we tell stories? Then what are the qualities of a good science story? Then how to find science stories. Afterwards, I'm going to share some things from a completed project science story that I did some time ago. So why should we talk about science story? Why science stories? First, there are over 2 million journal articles that are published in a year. That is like four articles that are published in a minute. That's scientific journals now. And that excludes the textbooks that have been written and the ones that will still be down, and all sorts that are written. So there are a lot of content out there. And as science communicate, as someone that wants to do science communication based on what we talked about last week, you may want to say you want to inform people, you want to educate them, or you want to entertain them. And what you want to do is not to give them an homework. People are not expecting that when what they hear from what they read or what they hear from your conversations, that they need to go and start looking for a dictionary or to search on Google before they can really understand the basics of what you're saying. You want them to be able to get the best of what it is you're saying. And then people really don't care about how the research was done, but people care about why it was done. People want to know, okay, you said you did ABC research, or you said this is some things about science that I need to pay attention to. Why does that matter to me? What exactly is the relevance of that to me? And also, we also know that for all of us, we think much more in terms of stories. I mean, from childhood, we've been told stories. We all if I say story, what comes to your mind? No matter where you are, most likely you say story. And why is it so? Because for generations, I mean, from the beginning, humanity has been communicating through stories, things that are important to us, even especially in Africa. Those things are coded in stories. Africa, from ages, have been passing across values, ethics through stories. So stories are very crucial, and not just Africa, everywhere in the world. We know that stories are an important part of people's conversations. Now, what are the qualities of a good story? Especially now, a good science story. A good story is something that is humanized. And what does that mean? It means that it has to do with people. Good, I mean, you will not see stories of a plant climb it, grew faster than the other plant. That doesn't really make sense. And so a good science story is humanized. That is, it has human subjects. You infuse something about people there. And you would see that most movies that sell, they are movies that relate to human beings. Even those ones, the sci-fi movies, all these movies that have to do with extraterrestrial beings, they still have some components of, okay, there is a human dimension to it. And that is something about science. People don't want to, if you're going to write a science, or if you're going to tell a science story, it should be something that you can connect with people. Human beings should be able to find a way to get human beings into that conversation. Then it should be relatable. People should be able to see components of that conversation that, oh yeah, I can understand that this is something that, or maybe that relates to me, or relates to somebody I know, or has a potential to relate to me. So people should be able to connect with that particular concept that you're, the story that you're trying to tell. Then it should be timely. What are the things that are trending? A science story that will be something that really relates to what people are interested in, or what is being said over and over again. You would notice that over the last 2 years, since COVID, when COVID struck, many diseases that have always been at the center of attraction, malaria and all of that, they went to the back burner. People started talking about COVID. Everybody started doing COVID. Why is it that they were doing that? Because that was something that was trending. And you see now, there's not much story. I mean, COVID is still a big deal. It's still something that is going on. But then the kind of emphasis that is placed on COVID in the world today, it's not the same kind of attention that was placed on it this time 2 years ago. Now, the reason is because it's not trending as much as it was then. Then 2 years ago, not much was known about COVID. Everybody was trying to find out what exactly is it, what happened there about it. So the story was evolving then. So people could continue with that story. I mean, people could continue to follow the story. People were writing stories. People were finding out, conducting researches and all of that on it. Now, a good science story is also clear and easy to understand. If you write a story, it should be something that is not complicated. It's not like you are writing another textbook, scientific textbook, or physics textbook, or a journal article. It should be something that is clear to people that read it, and they know, okay, these are the things that this person is saying, and they can easily understand those things. Also, a good science story would should have information from multiple sources. You want to give your audience balanced information. You want them to know the core things you are saying. You want to have perspectives of people. Part of humanizing a topic is also having people talk about it. Maybe the core people are at the center of that conversation, people that are related to it, and all of the people you want to talk. You want to hear people different dimensions of the conversation. Also, a good science story addresses people's present needs, their problems, and their aspirations. Mosquito is a big deal to many of us in Africa, and if you are going to talk about mosquito, you can talk about mosquito. Somebody can talk about the music the sound of mosquitoes, boom, boom. But if I write that story about the music, quote and unquote, from the mosquito that flies around, I'm not sure you'll be interested in reading it. But if I write a story about how to prevent that mosquito from getting to you or from getting to your baby, if I put those two headlines side by side, music from mosquito and how to prevent the mosquito from biting your baby, you're not likely going to read the one for music. The other one that talks about how to prevent the mosquito from biting your baby, you're likely going to read that because you naturally, you always want to protect your baby from being bitten by mosquito. So that's a science story that would have to, should address people's pressing problems, their aspirations, and their needs. Or another way of talking about it, if you look at technology now, for example, phones, people want to use their phones to solve their problems. Maybe it's a problem of connectivity or problem of, let's just say connectivity now, for example. If I want to write a story about phones, I can say I want to write the story about which phone is more beautiful. That will sell to some people. Or I can talk about how to maximize your battery or how to extend your battery life by 50%. Which of the two? If I'm talking about beautiful phones versus maximizing your battery life, especially if you're someone that knows that you travel a lot and you want to make sure that your battery is alive and it's readily available. You are not disconnected at any time. So whatever story addresses your need, your aspirations, that's the story you're going to gravitate towards. Okay. Now, I want us to pay attention to this. A story is not the same thing as a topic. And for example, a topic is climate change. If I just say climate change, it doesn't say anything. But if I'm writing a story about livestock farmers in a particular place called ABC, that they lost half of their herds to climate change, you're like, really? So people can lose animals due to climate change. So if I say it is due to drought caused by climate change, it catches your attention. You realize that it's not just something that is esoteric, something that is not accessible. It's something that really affects people. I can say monkeypox. If I just say monkeypox is a topic. But if on the alternative, I say scientists protest discrimination against Africans in monkeypox coverage. You want to say, okay, what exactly is that? So that means that there's discrimination against Africans in terms of monkeypox coverage, and that is something that is actually even happened. That is happening. There was still some scientists, including the director of ACEGID, still wrote a publication last week about this. Most of the people that are affected by the current monkeypox outbreak, they are males, Caucasian males. But the pictures that are projected around, most of them are Africans with monkeypox. That is something. So that's a story, but monkeypox alone is just a topic. And what you want to write is not just a topic. What you want to write is a story. What you want to talk about is a story, not just a topic. Now, what about immune system? Immune system is a topic, but if you just see immune system, you need to be somebody that is seriously interested in immunology for you to go and check to get into that story or to that topic. But if the story you see, if the title you see is how babies fight infections within their first 7 days after birth, it's something that will catch the attention of people. I mean, it will catch our attentions because you want to know, or maybe it's something that affects people. So you want this particular conversation. This slide is to separate help us to clarify when we are thinking about science stories. We are not just talking about topics. We are talking about stories. And you see for these three stories, they talk about people. There is something about people in that in the story title, or in the title. It's something that is very that we need to pay attention to. Yeah. So what kind of stories do we read? If you see different things, and what kind of story would you likely read? Fine. We'll read, probably you will likely read it if it's a new development. Is this something that was just discovered? Is this a new thing? Is it a trending topic? I've already talked about that. Also, people read about controversial topics. You know, science have a lot of controversies. Scientists have different areas that they are like, no, this is right, this is not right, this is the trend, this is the model, this is not the model. So there are controversial issues. So controversial, you can write, people read about controversial issues, and actually controversial issues can really gain a lot of people's attention very, very well. That's one of the reasons why you have some of these conspiracy theories thrive, because people are trying to figure out which one exactly is the real thing, which one is it. So people read that. Then people also read surprising stories. Is it what is that something within that particular space that is surprising? For example, it may be that you're trying to check for something, but then you found something else along the way. You can, or maybe it's you yourself as a scientist or as a student, you're trying to work on something, and along the line you realized something different, something you didn't plan for. Then that can be an opportunity for a good story, because it's a different place, it's unusual, or maybe it's something that goes contrary to the norm. You want to talk about it, or it's something that it can be something that has large scale impact. That story that I showed earlier about climate change. I mean, if let's say a community that of 50,000 people, and where half of them are farmers, and because of climate change, maybe there was maybe it was drought, or the temperature just went crazy, and all their plants got burnt, everything got destroyed in the soil. That is something, that means it's a large scale impact, because that, for example, not just affects the incomes of those farmers, it also affects the people that they will supply. I mean, for example, the world is talking about grains from Ukraine now, because there is war in Ukraine. The world is talking about access to wheat, some of these grains that come from Ukraine. So if somebody is talking about the science of war, for example, the large scale impact of that is going beyond Ukraine. It's getting to Africa, getting to all the countries that import grains from Ukraine and Russia. So that is something. Then we also people also read stories that are related to prominent people, institutions, or places. We know about we know that stories about celebrities or accomplishments of scientists or individuals or institutions are things that people read about. You can also have stories about anniversaries. We have many of these World Tuberculosis Day, World Malaria Day. Those, if you're going to write a story, for example, if you have something that relates to something like that, you can plan towards that time. And when you write stories around that time, very likely it has potential of reaching more people, because at that particular time, the story, that topic you want to write about is a trending story. For example, if you're talking about World Health Day, that particular day, before and after that day, there are a lot of conversations about health, and particularly about the topic that is focused on by World Health Organization for that particular year. So you may want to write stories that about the particular anniversary. For example, for here at AceGate, in 2020, AceGate generated the first SARS-CoV-2 sequence in Africa. Now, we had posts about it then, but this year, March, it was March 6th. That was the anniversary of when that was released. What did we do? We just we wrote some things about that particular anniversary on our Twitter page. It was just like a story of it, and we got it out. Interestingly, that got a lot of attention. People engaged with that particular post so much because it was something. It was an anniversary. It was a memory. It was something that people relate to. I mean, people mark their birthdays. They remember anniversaries and all of that. So those are the kind of things that you can look at when talking about stories about stories. And really, if you're going to write a story, it should be a story that people read. So you should think about these things when we are thinking of the stories to write. So how do we humanize science? Because we say that if you're going to talk about this, if you're going to write this a science story, you need to humanize it. You need to ask yourself some questions and answer those questions. First is that who is affected by the problem? The problem that research was conducted to solve. Who is affected by it? You can, if you're going to look at the conversation from the angle of the person or the people that are affected by the problem that is solved by that research, then it's a way of you already have somewhere to hinge your story upon, that you can hinge your story upon. You can, let's say, for example, in a rural area, people have been falling sick, and they really don't know what exactly the disease was. So a group of scientists went to that village, and they were trying to conducted tests and all of that about that. And they came out that this is the particular disease that is causing people's deaths. Now, if you want to produce a story on that, if the story is going to focus on the families that have been affected and all of that, then that's a way of humanizing that story. Let me give an example. A colleague of mine, he told me that the first time he went to a place that Lassa fever was common. They got to a household, and a girl of like 7 years old or thereabouts, met them and was like, why are you people just coming now? After I've lost 5 members of my family, including my mom. It's not that you guys are just coming. Why didn't you come earlier? Now, that was something that was a particular situation in which Lassa fever affected that family. And you know what? At the point when this colleague was trying to make a presentation in a competitive environment, he just told that story, talking about Lassa. He said, my first encounter was this. I'm sure it wasn't, and based at that competition, or at that presentation, it was adjudged very highly. One of the reasons I believe why it was adjudged where he had very high score was because he crafted a story that affected people. That talked about where the people that are affected by the Lassa fever problem. He talked about that story, and people really connected with that. And also, who can be affected by the solution? if your research or if the science, if the story you want to tell is something that you're talking about the solution, who can be affected by it? Is it, for example, of a group of farmers that maybe if it, let's say for example, you're talking, you're writing about a new product or a new input, a new agricultural input. Who are the people that will benefit from that input? Is it the farmer? Or is it only the farmer, for example? Is it something that will make the farmers productivity go high? Is it that it's going to reduce drudgery? The person doesn't have to do a lot of labor and add labor on the farm. Or is it something that, apart from increasing productivity of the farmer, it's also, for example, a seed of, maybe some of these seeds of maize, is it something that has higher productivity and in addition has some kind of nutrients that have been injected into that are the extra nutrients in the maize? For example, we have this vitamin A fortified cassava, for example. If you want to write about that, it's not just that cassava has good level of productivity compared to the local unimproved cassava. It's that apart from the fact that the farmer will get more money, the people that are eating, that are going to eat that cassava or the cassava products, they are going to have benefit. They have solution. They are going to enjoy some vitamin A supplements that vitamin A supplements that is already part of that cassava. So you want to look at those people, at the solution. Who is affected? Who can be affected by this solution? By extension, this cassava conversation, we can also say that, okay, is it if you're going to write it, you can write a story that is, if you are going to write it, targeting mothers of children, for example, in a place that they have very low, that vitamin A deficiency is rampant. You can write it to target parents. Or if you're targeting stories, writing to target parents, you can write it such that you are bringing it from the perspective of the children who are going to benefit from vitamin A fortified cassava or cassava products. In that case, you are not just writing it that, okay, this cassava is fortified with vitamin A. You're talking about the people, you're looking at the people, the children. Then also, who should be involved in solving the problem? Let's say there is problem of pollution, or let's say there is the problem of we don't have drainage system, and because that drainage system, because the drainage is bad, and then there is effects on agriculture, on health, and all of that. Now, your story may be about the people. Somebody may write a story about the government, or it may be about the people that are involved in that neighborhood, that are living in that neighborhood, or it can be about other organizations that are contributing. Maybe some particular organization. A particular organization is actually maybe a factory is around that environment that they use heavy equipment and all of that. So their plants, their equipment were the ones that actually damaged the road. And because of that, we have the problem. So that organization, you want to try, if you want to tell a story that targets them, that you guys should be involved in solving this problem. It can be that it can be in that way. You can also be that who can be interested in the issue. Let's say, for example, the science story you are trying to write is something about poultry, and it's that poultry, birds, the cost of feed, for example, is going high. Or let's say maize that is a very crucial component of poultry feed is just not readily accessible. Now, you want to, if you're going to write a story on that, you may want to write, humanizing it to talk, we may want to talk about policymakers that have to do, and not now you're not just talking about policymakers in the Ministry of in the Department of Livestock alone. You want to talk about people that are involved in that have to do with plants, people that are involved, the customs that will be involved in maybe importation and exportation and all of that. You want to have stories that will relate to this. All right, so I would go into, I would, this is like a science story. Sorry, this is a scientific publication from organization here at ISGID. It was published by our scientists in collaboration with some of our partners outside there. And I'll try and bring out, I wrote a story on it sometime last year, and I just want to I want to just look at it together. The topic of this, the title of this publication is Whole Genome Sequencing of Clinical Samples Reveals Extensively Drug-Resistant Tuberculosis XDR-TB strains from the Beijing lineage in Nigeria, West Africa. I'm sure probably somebody's like, what exactly is that? We need to read it second time, third time before you really understand what it is. And then you are also asking yourself, what does extensively drug-resistant tuberculosis mean? What is Beijing lineage? Lineage. Now, this is a scientific publication, so it's this is understandable. It's not written for people that are not specialists in this area. People that are specialists in this area, when they see this, they understand everything. They don't need to go and check the textbook before they understand this. Now, okay, before I go on, is there anybody that has a question? Does anybody have a question that you may want to ask? Because this is just to like put some of those, to show how some of those things we talked about, how we can apply them. Is there anybody that has a question? If you have a question, can you just drop it in the chat? Question? Okay. Or you can raise your hand if that's going to be faster. Okay. Okay. Van Den says, how do we become careful not to cross the line of sensationalizing scientific news when we humanize these stories? This is very crucial because many times people extend what is said in science beyond what's really was said. So I think the way to do it is to be sure, at least first be sure of what are the details of what's the extent of the particular science story, I mean of the science article or science topic you are covering. First, we need to be sure about that. Personally, what I do is that after trying to understand, after reading maybe the article and trying to check online for explanation of those words that I really don't understand, then I reach out to the scientists that are particularly involved in that work to say, what exactly is this that you did? I ask questions clearly. I ask for the ramifications, the extent of what exactly what their work says, and if what they've done is something that is if what they've done is something that like is not very clear, or maybe I am tending to extend it beyond what it is, they'll tell me that no, this is not it. I've had instances whereby I thought that this is exactly what this person is saying, and when I came back to the person, said, no, that's not exactly what it means. This is what it means. So I'm not a specialist in this particular field. So I want to, I ask the people that were involved in the work, this and this, is this so? And apart from that, I also do my own research to check what is it that is said generally about this particular topic. Because you don't, if you sensationalize a story, then people tend, I mean, if people see that trend with you, they just will not see you as somebody that is serious. And then you can actually be doing more damage because you are promising what science did not promise. And that's not a good one. I mean, that is ethically wrong. So you want to stay within the remits, within the limits of whatever the person said, whatever the work done is. You want to stay within that limit. I hope that helps. And Okoye Miolaje just said that since it's a story, do we still need to have references? Yes, I think it makes, if you're going to have when I say yes, it doesn't mean that we're going to have references the way we have in scientific publication. It means that you want to like connect, you want to maybe provide a link for people to be able to access that particular that particular story. You want to share that link, not just that you're going to talk about this person said this person said this. You want it to be that people can still connect it. Otherwise, people will have to search for the names of the people you wrote and then maybe the particular story. And if, for example, that person published 2 or 3 articles that are related to that particular topic within the space of time that you just talked about, then that becomes complicated. So it's usually good, or it's better to have somewhere at least a line or so to point out that this particular story was published here. I published something, I think it's even this particular story. By the time I sent it to the publisher of the story that I wrote based on this article, that the link to the story was not there. And by the time I got back I realized that no, it was quite late. The people were, I mean, I felt bad about it. So from that time, I mean, there was this article that from the time I made that mistake of not including the link or at least something to reference a story in that story, then I told myself, if I'm writing a story, I have to put it somewhere there so that people can access it, because that's it. Okay, another question. If it is a story, do I write from a real life research? What actually happened? It depends. It depends on it depends on what what you want to say. For example, this particular story, the story that I wrote based on this journal article, it was fictional, half fictional and half reality. In that particular publication, there was they mentioned 2 people, 2 of the people that they got samples from. So I just crafted the story, something that relates to that, and I used names. I added names. I added stories to it. I'm going to show you that story later on. It's possible, and then it can actually be something that happened during this research. That is, if that story you're writing is something about the process of that research. If, for example, you're writing about scientists are also human beings, or the kind of things that you go through in lab when you are, or whether in lab or on the field, when you're preparing, when you're conducting your research. If you're writing a story on something like that, then you may want to put something that really happened during the research. Okay, I'll take this question by Isabella before I go back, and we'll take other questions later. Isabella says, when explaining one of your points, you made an example of 2 stories that is the sound of mosquito, that is the sound mosquitoes make, and how to prevent mosquitoes from biting you. And you said people are going to be more interested in sound than the preventive measures. I think what I meant was that people will likely be more interested in preventing mosquitoes from accessing them, from biting them, than from the sound mosquitoes make. people may be much more interested in how do I keep myself, protect myself, my family from mosquitoes, rather than you can play music, you can make music with mosquitoes. Okay. Okay, as an example, okay, an example is COVID. Based on my observation, people were more interested in the conspiracy theories and myths than the preventive measures. Okay. Well, I know that there are a lot of people, I mean, a lot of conversations, a lot of things about the conspiracy theories with COVID. I think people are still studying that. I may not be able to say much about that now, because I know that there are a lot of people are, I mean, many the conspiracy theories are strong, the myths are there, the realities are there, the scientific evidence is there, the places where things that are clear, things that are not very clear, they are not very clear. So this is something that is evolving. So I understand that. Okay, how to make, okay, she's asking, how do we make the important stories more interesting and appealing for the public to read? We may not be the ones to determine the stories that are important. People should be the ones to determine which one is important to them. And I think it's part of it's now our responsibilities to, you know, I was talking about presenting ideas from different dimensions earlier. If you're going to write stories, if it's an issue that has a that is controversial, you want to present arguments from different sectors of the from different people, from different places, so that people can make informed decisions. They can decide their own. I'm the one that will decide whether this is important to me or this is not important to me. So I think for us, it's ours is to project the stories, the situations, and then give people the opportunity to make that decision. Yeah. So I will come back to other questions later on. So let's go to this. The topic of that, the title of this paper says, whole genome sequencing of clinical samples reveal extensively drug-resistant tuberculosis XDR-TB strains from Beijing lineage in Nigeria, West Africa. Okay, the abstract, this is the abstract. I'll just read part of it. The part says multi-drug resistant MDR and extensively drug resistant XDR tuberculosis continues to be a global public health problem, especially in high TB burden countries like Nigeria. Many of these cases are undetected and go on to infect high-risk individuals. The other part at the bottom, the genomic sequence data from this study not only provide the first evidence of XDR TB in Nigeria and West Africa, but also emphasize the importance of WGS, that is whole genome sequencing in accurately detecting MDR and XDR TB to ensure adequate and proper management, treatment regimens for to ensure adequate and proper management, treatment regimens for affected individuals. This will greatly aid in preventing the spread of drug resistance TB in high burden countries. Now, this is the abstract. It talks about, it's something about tuberculosis and drug resistance in tuberculosis. And our scientists worked on that study. And okay, yeah, this is part of the introduction. This is the end of the introduction. It says, in this study, we use whole genome sequencing to investigate TB positive clinical samples that were confirmed RR, that's RR-TB, that is rifampicin resistant. That's one of the drugs used for TB, that they've confirmed it that it was rifampicin resistant, and that we also use bioinformatics to classify bacteria into lineages in order to identify the strains or clonal complexes present in Nigeria. Now, the reason why I highlighted this part is this. When you read through probably a scientific article, one of the places that you would see what you can connect with people is the place where they talk about the objectives of the study. The objectives of the study is one of those places that guide you to understand, okay, what's this particular research all about? Or it gives you a place to find out, okay, what's the so what of that study? Now, when definitely first thing you read it, you read the title, and then you read the abstract. You'll notice that I highlighted the end of that abstract because that talks about that's like the summary of the results and the implications of that study. Now, the objectives of that scientific publication is it's something that can easily give you a clue or like a foretaste of what you can start thinking, where you may have a story coming, how to build, where you can build a story from. Now, this is from the results part, the discussion. We said in our findings, one of the patients who tested positive to HIV was diagnosed as MDR-TB, that's multi-drug resistant TB, while the other was diagnosed as drug-resistant TB. As both samples tested negative to second-line drugs using rapid molecular tests, which many TB labs in Nigeria solely rely on. However, both samples were confirmed to be XDR-TB, that's extensively drug-resistant TB, with whole genome sequence analysis. What's the point? This study, they were trying to check the extent of drug resistance in the bacteria that causes TB, that in people that are confirmed to have drug resistance. And what normally happens is that in the hospitals, after confirming that somebody has TB, they check what's the extent of drug resistance in the TB that person has. Now, the rapid tests that are used to conduct these tests, they check, okay, they mention, they like say this particular bacteria is resistant to this and this bacteria, these drugs. Or so based on this, based on the resistance, they classify them as, okay, is a multi-drug resistant TB or is not. So here in this particular study, they said that one of the patients that was diagnosed as multi-drug resistant TB was actually, and the other one that was diagnosed as just drug resistant, they had extensively drug resistant TB. That means that the TB that they had was resistant to most of the drugs that were administered to them. I mean, that were the drugs that were administered to them. So what happened? Following up on the treatment, as they continued with the study, when they saw those two, they went to follow up. So it says following up on patients' treatment outcome from the MDR-TB treatment center in Lagos, they found out that the patient who tested positive and had an XDR-TB, the person died as a result of complications from both infections, that is, from both HIV and XDR-TB, while the other patient stopped treatment due to severe side effects arising from the treatment regimen. That person would have gone on to infect many other people with this particular drug-resistant TB. For this particular story, I was fortunate, quote and unquote, to have real people's stories inside the scientific publication, but that is not usually the way it is in many publications. So what was it? What did I do? This is a story that I published, that I wrote on it. It was published in a Nigeria-based online platform. This is the topic: next-gen sequencing reveals misdiagnosis of tuberculosis strain. Can you compare the two stories, the two headlines, the two topics? For the topic of the story proper and the topic and the title rather, the title of the story of the article and the title of the story that I wrote. This should have had in Nigeria, but then this was not there because it was a platform that was primarily focused on Nigeria. So that was, if it were to be for but if this was to be published in a platform that is completely international, then we might have said next-gen sequencing reveals misdiagnosis of tuberculosis strain in Nigeria. Now, okay, I would continue. So this is the beginning of that story. In the published story, it says Lola was a tuberculosis patient who had also tested positive for HIV. Looking at this and that, you know that the person I was referring to. Rapid diagnosis test showed that she had multi-drug resistant TB. This means that the first-line drugs were not effective for her treatment. Hence, second-line drugs were prescribed for her. Her family wondered why her health worsened speedily, and her doctors were baffled that the other drugs were not effective for her. She died of complications from TB and HIV. Lola was one of the Nigerians from whom the drug resistance of bacteria that caused TB was misdiagnosed. I mean, that's the story. Looking at this, you would see that you'll be able to connect. Is this particular paragraph or is this relatable? Can people connect it that okay? Is there a human being there? You already have human being. We have Lola there. Our family is mentioned. Our doctors are mentioned. So we can easily connect with that. And then, what is the problem? She had a disease, but then she was treated, and then she was not getting well. She died finally. The second story that what I brought up for the second part said, unfortunately, Bala's story highlights how misdiagnosis can affect patients and lead to greater TB spread. Just like Lola, Bala was also misdiagnosed with rifampicin-resistant TB. Hence, second-line TB drugs were prescribed for him. He took the drugs for a while, but stopped. Why? The drugs had severe side effects on him, and there was no marked improvement in his health. Now, looking at this, what I have done is to bring out the relevance of that part of that study. And looking at the other part of it, the study shows that using the recent study using NGS, however, showed that he had XDR TB, that is extensively drug-resistant TB. And he stopped taking the drugs. And what would have happened? Would have gone on to spread the virus, or the bacteria in his community. The two of them were living in Lagos because that was where the sample was collected. The sample for that study was collected. And what does that mean? That's potential risk of spread of this tuberculosis. It doesn't mean that tuberculosis cannot be treated. Tuberculosis can be treated, but then this just shows that there was a problem. And at the end of that study, this particular story was written to target people that were public health, people that were involved in public health, because they are the ones that determine what kind of tests should be done on samples. So the point of this story was to say that look, they should expand. They should consider whole genome sequencing, which is like as a basis for determining the drug resistance of TB among Nigerians. Now, as I conclude, I want to remind us these things. How do we humanize stories? You want to check who is affected by the problem, who can be affected by the solution, who should be involved in solving the problem, and then who can be interested in the issue, who is interested in the issue, who are the stakeholders. Essentially, you're talking about who are the stakeholders. That's basically how to humanize the story. Who are the stakeholders? So the story can be humanized from the perspective of any of these people, depending on who the audience, who you're writing for. So thank you very much. I have come to the end of the presentation, and we can ask further questions. Let me answer this question first before we other people can ask questions. Maybe free to raise our hands. Okay, people can raise their hands and talk, right? Okay, so I'll answer Carol Martinez's question. Is it okay to write possible scientific ideas from the community to the scientists? I am not sure I understand this question properly. Is it okay to write possible scientific ideas? If Carol, let me ask let me say what I think you're asking. If I'm right, please tell me. If I'm wrong, let me know, please. Okay, yeah, she said in sense that the bidirectional communication. Perfect. In fact, this is what we should actually tend towards, because beneath scientists would, not just the scientists, the society will benefit a lot from scientists receiving ideas about what to do, what problems we should find ways to solve from the community, because this community, they are stakeholders. If scientists say they are conducting research, and the people that they think they are conducting the research for, that they are solving their problem, they say, no, that's not our real problem. This is our problem. So it makes a lot of sense. It's the best way is to go beyond just mere communicating that is one direction, unidirectional communication, to engagement. And last week, this was part of our conversation, that we should not just talk about dumping information on people. We should start thinking about getting information, exchanging exchanging ideas with the public. That's what we call public engagement, and that was something that we really talked about last week. Okay, Van Den has another set of questions. It says, so the misdiagnosis narrative came from the results from the use of rapid tests, which has a different result from the molecular diagnostic test, NGS. Yes, exactly. It came from the fact that the rapid test did not capture those did not capture the particular, I don't want to start talking complexities, but they don't capture the mutations. Some mutations that were seen by whole genome sequencing were not captured by the rapid test. So the idea is that whole genome sequencing should complement, at least we should sign, the public health authorities or hospitals, laboratories should consider this at least as something to really look at in Nigeria. Okay, so why wasn't anything about the protocol of Nigeria on diagnosing TB included to help explain the side of the medical people who were included in the incident? I didn't get this question. Why wasn't anything about the protocol of Nigeria on diagnosing TB included to help explain the side of medical people who were included? Okay, no, now this is it. As at the time that it was published, what was done generally was that they used the rapid tests, and it was mentioned in the story. It was mentioned both in the article and the story that was the stand, that was what was done generally, and it makes sense because in the hospital where some people come to present themselves, it's not all the hospitals that have facilities or capabilities for whole genome sequencing. That is quite expensive. So what is done, and what is generally done, is that they do at least perform the rapid test. Now, what the study was saying was that, yes, rapid test is good, but it is not, I mean, some things can be misdiagnosed, some things get missing, while, I mean, from the results of the rapid test. So it's to say that it was the study, and even the story was to say that to reach out to Nigeria's public health authorities to say, look, let us upscale, let us go beyond just rapid tests, let us do some more whole genome sequencing. All right. YD, you're welcome. Isaac, thank you. Okay, Olaoni, thank you. Okay. Can we get this website to get more scientific stories? Yes, we can. We're going to share some links to both how to get like scientific stories and also how to write them. I think let me stop sharing so I can probably at least share some links with us. Let me stop sharing my screen. There is this page. There is open notebook. I just shared a link now. It's a masterclass, or I mean, it's from Open Notebook. They have a series of topics there. There is one about how to find an angle to a story. They are free courses. I mean, there are things you can they can help you to find out about writing scientific stories. This is especially from the journalism angle. Okay, Justina said, is it correct to use people's names while giving a story? Were the names used the exact names? Well, it's good to use names, but you don't use names of people. I mean, you shouldn't use the names of the people that were involved. The names I used were I just picked the names by myself. I mean, I wasn't even involved in the study. Mine was just to write. I wasn't involved in the study. I just wrote the story. So I just used names, except if the person wants you to identify themselves in the story, then you shouldn't use their names. It's not. I mean, I don't think it's something that one should do. Okay. Do we have other questions, please? Okay. Okay. Yeah, allow you can unmute if you want to ask a question. Anybody that wants to ask a question, you can just raise your hand up so that you can unmute and then talk. Okay, Idris Momodu, please.
Okay. Hello.
Oh, okay, so hold on, Idris. Allow you. You can go ahead, please.
All right. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the presentation. Actually, I couldn't join earlier, so probably I've missed some things. Now, in writing these stories, is it necessary when you are using a publication? Is it necessary for you to like reach out to the author of the publication first before publishing the story, or the other way around? Probably after you have done it, you reference them or something. Do you get my question?
Yeah, I got the question. I think it makes a lot of sense to reach out to the author of the publication. I mean, because that person wrote it. In fact, one of the things that if because we're not, today's conversation is not about how to write the story, because next week when we talk about how to write the story, we are still going to talk about including quotes from the author and from other people. So it makes a lot of sense to get across to the person that at least the first author or whoever, I mean, or the corresponding author of that publication, so that you can hear from them. You can things that you can ask them questions about the research that you want to put inside your story, because definitely the things that that article that you saw, or that you're going to write something on, that article was written in a technical way. So you yourself, that you're writing that story, you want to ask questions that will help you to break down the technical jargon. So if you're going to do that, then it makes a lot of sense to just reach out to them, ask them questions, and you may still want to ask other people questions, maybe people that are in that field, people that are doing something related, or people that whose comments or perspectives we had value to your story. Thank you. Idris, can you unmute and speak, please?
Yeah, good evening, sir. Thank you very much for the presentation. It's an enlightening one. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, my question is, are there websites or versions that can we as early science communicator or aspiring science communicator can use or send in science stories for starters? Would there be such platform or such thing will be shared across to us?
There are a lot of platforms where people can publish science stories, but I had some issues about that at some point too, because when I looked at platforms, I'm like, oh, these people, their expectations are very high, people that needed to write stuff. So one of the things we are doing that will be part of, that would come out of this workshop, we are working on a website that we would, that will be accessible, that will make people, at least participants of this workshop first, people that are interested, especially from this workshop, that would give them opportunity to publish, and they will publish free of charge. It will be, at least we would help them, work with them in terms of maybe if we need to we give editorial comments so that they can, whatever is coming out will be, at least it won't be, it will be good. So we are working on that, and by hopefully, what we are looking, hopefully by the end of by the third or fourth week, we are going to make some announcements which in that regard. So we felt that if we just do it and then ask people to go out, it may not be very convenient for many people to find somewhere to at least an outlet that they can put their stories. So we will do that. We are working on that. By next week or the following week, we are going to make some announcements on it. Thank you very much, Idris. Any other person that would like to ask a question? Thank you, Justina. Thank you, Isabella. Thank you, Esther. Do we still have any question? Okay, Lucky. You can unmute and ask a question, please.
Okay, thank you. For me, it's not much of a question, just a comment to a question that was raised earlier about the usage of names in the articles. I just wanted to get to make an input on that. It's also important to consider ethical issues, because we cannot just name the patients or anyone without having prior permission from them. So it's just a comment on that, ethically, we have also to be wise on that we don't expose other people's information unnecessarily. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucky. That's just the way it is. Ethically, that you can't. So, and it's, we need to be sure that we respect people's privacy. We don't do what is not accepted. And if you have to use the person's name, it will be that the person has expressly approved that yes, you can do that for whatever reason the person wants. So thank you. Can we have other questions? Or comments, please. It's not only questions. We can have comments too. That would be good. Is anybody raising their hand? Nobody. Okay. All right. So if there is no comment, or okay, if you have a question, raise your hand up. Justice said that even if person accepts that you put the name, it is not ethical. Okay. Okay. Aderonke said, how do I stay focused on my storyline such that I'm not drifting here and there in trying to tell my fictional story to explain my science story? Well, this is an interesting thing, and it's one of those things we're going to talk about next week, but maybe it's easier. I think first thing is to have the structure of your story. Structure your story. I mean, have the structure of your story, and then you would want to stick to that structure. I mean, how do I? Yeah, basically it's that your story is. Oh my. Your story, I said earlier that your story has to be clear. So if you're not clear on what exactly you want to say or what you're telling the people, then it's difficult for you to actually keep people. And if people have to run to and fro with you, by the time they go first and come back, they will just leave you to say, at least I'm not following this person around. So it's the angle that you're coming in for your story, that at least once you have an angle that you really want to come in for, the angle that you want to come in, and you stay on that angle, you anchor whatever you're saying on that angle. Anything that negates that angle is not something that is crucial for your story. You can always ignore it. But everything that will add strength, that will add life, that will add flesh to that angle, then it's good. Let's say, for example, your story is on a particular kind of fertilizer that some people developed. It's an inorganic fertilizer, and the promise is that this fertilizer is going to increase productivity by, let's say, 30%. Now, and the people you're writing that story for, your target audience is the farmer that will use it. So your story, you're bringing your story from the angle of this farmer that probably wants to increase his productivity by 20% or 30%, and you're talking about that story. As you're talking about that, you may want to like avoid anything that will take you to, for example, conversations about how to develop that or the things that the technicality of the production of that fertilizer. Going into that may not really help that farmer, especially if the farmer doesn't even have access to plants, to things that we used to mix that to formulate that kind of fertilizer. So you want to avoid that. Also, for example, you want to avoid things that have to do with, anything that is not staying on that is like a different angle from the angle you are focusing on. I think you are free if you ignore such, and your story will still be solid. Okay, is there any other question? Okay, Justina, you want to ask a question? Please go ahead.
It's not a question, it's just some sort of a request. You just sent a link showing, I've just went through that link and I've just realized it contains some courses where one can join and still learn about scientific story writing. So my request was, can we get a link which contains if one enters there, the link contains a lot of stories, scientific stories, so that I believe if one can pass through a lot of stories, if one can pass through a lot of different writings from scientists, we can even learn more and more how we can go on storytelling and everything.
We can collate, we can share at least some websites where it's I think we can do that readily. There are a number of websites that have excellent stories. There are a lot of them, so we'll share them. Thank you. Any other thing? Okay. Any other comments? Okay, so I would, as we are going to close shortly, and as I would share an animation that okay. Balo is asking a question. Do we WhatsApp platform for more insightful discussion, or can we create one? I don't know. if we don't have a WhatsApp platform at the moment. We don't have any WhatsApp group, but I know that WhatsApp is a very interesting platform for quick conversations about science communication and all. So, and I'm also careful about WhatsApp platforms being abused. So I wouldn't know if people think that it's something that they're happy with. I'm okay with it. But presently, I'm careful about that. So I wanted to share a video with us. That's like a teaser or an appetizer for next week, for our conversation next week. It is an animation that's created based on a scientific publication and a tool that was developed by scientists at ISGID. So I'll just play it.
All right, everyone. Just give us 3 minutes. We're back. Just a network glitch. Yeah. Perioli's network is bad. There's a bit of glitch, but we'll soon be back. So please just hang in there. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ima Clemente. I also have that kind of idea. Reading science stories outside of your field is very helpful. The story that Mr. Ioli shared with us was really was so interesting to read. uh, reading something else outside. I'm more into chemistry, so seeing something about TB, about drug resistance from another was quite interesting to read and hear about. It's also helpful to know how they approached it. Yes, that's quite interesting to know. It's also nice to know it's a challenge for all of science, not just your piece of it. Yes, and taking us back to what Mr. Oyewale said last week about what Mr. Afikayo Oyewale said last week about knowledge being awesome, not what is necessarily divided to be social sciences or life sciences or physical science. We have it being segregated. Knowledge is actually old because even with real people, talk of TB, the drug resistance and how it affects everybody, how it affects people, in Lagos, different. I mean, knowledge is awesome and it's just so good to read about it. Yes, Emma Clemenson also said, I am studying archaeology, so I was part of the public for this section. Wow, that's interesting to know. That's so interesting to know. And I think when we pull all of these ideas together, it just makes them up with something for, at least we know a bit of what happens in different fields. And we are not just stereotyped to just a particular field. I don't know if Fikayo's network is stable now for us to. Well, okay, while we wait for that, all right, let me unmute.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So can everybody hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah, I just posted two
Yes,
links in
we can hear
the
you.
chat box. Okay, I just posted two links in the chat box. The first one is this scientific publication on that tuberculosis paper, and then the second one is the story on that. Okay, so I wanted to share a video with us, so let me just do that now, please. Share.
She has been allured by the possibilities available through bioinformatics over the last several months. A terminal research project involves the analysis of viral genomes. She's however stuck because most available tools require paid subscriptions, huge computational power, and possibilities available through bioinformatics over the last several. A terminal research project involves the analysis of viral genomes. She's however stuck because most available viral assembly tools require paid subscriptions, huge computational power, and a reliable internet connection, all of which are beyond our present reach. Jade works with the National Reference Laboratory. With the COVID-19 pandemic, his unit now has the mandate to sequence the genomes of SARS-CoV-2 and other viral pathogens genes. He has limited knowledge of bioinformatics and is perplexed that he has to use separate tools for the different stages involved in analyzing the genomes. Well, viral genomes easily analyzed. VGEA is the first software for analyzing viral genomes. It integrates existing bioinformatics tools for quality control, sequence mapping to reference genes. VGEA was designed to be deployable on a personal computer. After downloading the software, it works offline. Now, Julie can develop her skills without hassle while she prepares for postgraduate studies in bioinformatics. Can readily provide evidence to inform public health policies for his country. Everyone is happy about this. VGEA was developed by scientists at the African Center of Excellence for Genomics of Infectious Diseases, Redeemers University, Ede, Nigeria.
Network was breaking. Okay, what I would do this. I would share a link that's in the record when I'm sharing the recording. It's just something to show about some of a possibility. I mean, that's an animation based on a publication that was made here at AceGate, and I think that it's just to show that it's not all about writing. We can do other things apart from write-ups. Although this, to produce that, we need to write the script and all of that. But then it's not necessary. It's not everything that is just. It's not only written outputs that we can really. That is not written outputs that are science that we can use communication. Okay, I think there are some comments there. Sign common plugged special edition. Okay. Thank you very much for sharing this, Carol. Thank you for sharing this. Okay. Okay, so apologies for the issue connection earlier. So I think I would hand over back to Aderonke.
Okay, thank you much. If you've stayed points, I think you're what we call the real MVP. Thank you so much for joining us. And what do we say to Fikayo Yewale for that beautiful presentation? We say thank you. Please type in thank you in the comment section, in the chat box. Say thank you, Fikayo, for that presentation. That was so insightful and engaging. Thank you very much. And if you're just joining us, the question is, where have you been? Where have you been? Thank you so much for that insightful conversation. All right, thank you, Philip. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that insightful conversation. All right, we're about bringing this particular session to a close. Next week, we still have so much in the offering. I have so much for you, and I hope you make it here next week again for another beautiful session. We've just started scratching the surface. Should I say we've started scratching the surface? The taste of the pudding is in the eating. We have to get to the bottom part, and we have 2 more sessions to go, which is going to be which would not be short of excellent and insightful also. And let me also say that the recording will be shared into our mails with time. We're going to get all of that. And between next week, I would also go make use of some of the learned plan, look for stories, read up different stories. I think Fikayo shared some of the links. We can go through, read through, And if you have any questions, I'm sure that he'll be more than willing to answer those questions. All right, thank you very much, everyone. I don't know if there's any other thing that we want to talk about. Yeah, thank you so much, Olaiton. Thank you. The presentation, Mamadou, you're going to get the recording in our mails very soon. The recording for last week was sent to our mail, so I'm sure that we're going to get this to soonest. All right, thank you very much. In the absence of anything else, I don't know, I think we still have opening for, like people can still join in with time, yes. So you can keep sharing, the link is still open. All right, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. I don't know, it's evening here. It's evening here, so we still have some hours before it's late. So if it's morning in your place, enjoy the rest of your day. If it's night, good night. If it's normal, like you're still in Nigeria, enjoy the rest of your day. And we can start exiting the group now. Thank you very much. Okay, please, before we go, sorry. Okay, before we go, Fikayo would have loved to do an activity, but I don't know, the network is acting up, really. It's really acting up. And really, I was just looking forward to the activity so that we can have something to take home and come back next week so that we're not just going to start. Okay, it's in now. Thank you very much. So if you're still here, Fikayo would like to give us.
All right, thank you very much. Network started misbehaving. Sorry, apologies. Now, I want to ask us. I mean, anyway, you can you to just go pick any scientific, maybe publication or a scientific topic, and look at maybe it can be something that maybe your write up or a write up that you find interesting or something, and think of how you can look at story options that you can have from it. You can write those stories out. I mean, or the story ideas, you can write them out. And if you are already experienced with story writing, why not? You can start a story, and then we can talk about that next week when we come together. So it's been good having you around. Thank you so much, everybody. So activity, we just write something, get a story about a scientific topic that is interesting to you, or something that you feel is relevant, that is trending. So just look at how we are how to humanize it, how to write a story, how to get a story out of it. And then we see next week and we'll discuss. Next week, we are talking about how to write about science. So if you've never written about science, that's okay. We are going to talk about that. How to structure your writing, how to make sure that, the components that you should have in your writing. I'm sure it's going to be another beautiful time. Thank you to everybody every one of us here, those that were not around last week but are here today. It's good to have you here. Thank you so much for your kind words, everybody. All of your thank yous, all of your appreciations. We are grateful for them. You can still share, as you said, you can share with other people so that they can also participate. People can learn. It would be good if, as maybe we don't want to hide the information. Let us share. Thank you very much. Have a good day.